Does body language prove Donald Trump colluded with Russia to help him win the 2016 presidential election? Find out next. And I'm proud to be an American. Welcome back to the channel. Derek Van Schaik here. And here's another episode in the Body Language of a Liar series, where we determine whether someone famous is lying. First, this video is not intended to be political. In this episode, we'll be determining whether Donald Trump is lying about Russia collusion, which may have helped him win the 2016 presidential election. We'll be analyzing his body language in 3 different interviews to determine if Trump is lying about Russia collusion. Now, let's get started. The first one we're going to look at is from May of 2017, and it's an NBC interview.
This Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election that they should have won.
When we look at body language to determine if someone's lying or not, we'll be looking at a few things. The first main thing we're going to be looking at is comparing Trump's tonality, body language, and facial expressions with what is typical. And the way that we find out what is typical is by looking at the rest of the interview. That's why in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see the entire interview playing. So you can actually compare yourself to Donald Trump answering this question to Donald Trump answering all the other questions of the interview to see how his body language potentially deviates from what has been typical throughout the interview. The reason why someone's body language changes is because when they lie, they get nervous. In this one clip, the first thing that I want to point out is his eye contact. Here he's being interviewed by Lester Holt of NBC News, and he is not losing eye contact. Many times when someone is lying, they will break eye contact with you. I think we've all heard people say, if you're telling me the truth, look me in the eyes when you say that. The liar feels like if you can see into his eyes, you could then see into his soul, and therefore you'll know that he's lying.
We had a very nice dinner. And at that time, he told me, you are not under investigation, which I knew anyway.
Trump is asked about a dinner he had with Jim Comey, the former FBI director, and whether or not Trump asked him if he was under investigation. He first starts with a head nod and then moves to a subtle head shake. Based on that body language, based on his tonality, it seemed to be that he was 90-some-odd% sure that he was not under investigation, but it seemed that he just wanted to confirm that he was not under investigation. When we go through these 3 Trump interviews, we're going to be talking a lot about congruency. The words that someone says match their body language, which match their tonality, which match their facial expressions. Everything should be in line. When all that's in line in what we call full congruency, as well as Trump not changing his body language when he's answering these Russia questions, that indicates that he's being truthful.
The other thing is the Russians did not affect the vote, and everybody seems to think that.
Right here, we get a rare glimpse of Trump getting emotional. If you notice, he has a sad look on his face. His eyes are even getting a little glassy. It appears that he feels that the media and a lot of other people aren't giving him the credit he feels he deserves for achieving a stunning election upset. And when we play this clip further, you'll notice that Trump is getting even more emotional now. If you notice the blinks, the glassy eyes, and tucking in the lip, which is him holding back a rare glimpse of his sad emotion.
If Russia hacked, if Russia did anything having to do with our election, I want to know about it.
Still maintains strong eye contact while talking about Russia, not deviating his body language, such as not starting to maybe give himself a neck massage or fold his hands, maybe massage the webs of his fingers, not doing any of that. Many times when someone is lying, they'll go, give a really deep breath. The reason why is their heart rate jumped in a fight or flight defense mechanism, so they need to breathe heavier to compensate for a higher heart rate. Trump is not doing that.
I'll tell you this, if Russia or anybody else is trying to interfere with our elections, I think it's a horrible thing, and I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want to make sure it will never, ever happen.
Right there, all of Trump's body language is pointing to him being truthful. For example, look how he's sitting. He's sitting straight into it. He's not leaning back or to the side, leaning away from Lester Holt, the interviewer, because he doesn't like the questions that are being asked. He's not crossing his arms in a defensive mode. He's not holding himself. He's not giving himself a massage. He's not touching his mouth. He's not touching his face. Keep in mind, there are so many key indicators that could indicate someone is lying, and he is not doing any of them.
I have nothing to do with Russia. I have no investments in Russia, none whatsoever. I don't have property in Russia. A lot of people thought I owned office buildings in Moscow. I don't have property in Russia.
Sometimes what someone will do is touch their face when they're lying. Did you ever see a little kid that tells a lie and they cover their mouth right away? But the funny thing is, adults do the same thing because they don't like what's coming out of their mouth and they don't want other people to see what's coming out of their mouth, so they end up partly covering their mouth. Sometimes a nose touch will indicate that they're lying. Is because of the typical higher heart rate someone experiences when they lie. Therefore, blood rushes to their extremities, including their nose. Causes a tingling feeling in their nose, causing them to want to rub it. However, key thing to note, women typically don't touch their face or their nose when they're lying. You may be asking, well, why women and not men? Typically, men don't wear makeup, and women have learned not to touch their face because they don't want to smudge their makeup.
But I'm not involved with Russia. I have had dealings over the years where I sold a house to a very wealthy Russian many years ago. I had the Miss Universe pageant, which I owned for quite a while. I had it in Moscow a long time ago. But other than that, I have nothing to do with Russia.
Again, complete congruency between his body language, his tonality, his facial expressions, and the words that are coming out of his mouth. For example, when he's saying or implying no, his body language is in line with that. The next interview we're going to look at is from April of 2017, and it's with Face the Nation.
Russia is a phony story. Which part of it is phony?
The concept of Russia with respect to us.
Trump said the Russia story is phony, and as you just saw, his body language is congruent with all of that.
Is a total phony story.
Meaning the Trump campaign.
Of course it's a total phony story.
This is the thing, guys. In conversations or in interviews, people have much more control over the words that come out of their mouth as opposed to their body language. So therefore, the words that they say may not be truthful, but their body language is.
I can tell you one thing. It had nothing to do with us. Had nothing to do with this, and everyone knows it.
Again here, complete congruency, no signs of any type of lying. The last interview we're going to look at is a July 2nd, 2018 Fox Business interview.
There's no collusion with me. There's no Russia with me. There's no nothing. Honestly, it's a disgrace.
If you notice here, very congruent body language. His eye contact is still right at Maria Bartiromo. His eyes are not in the floor. His eyes are not looking past her, which can be very, very typical of someone who's lying.
But I purposely said, I'm not getting involved. Let it just go. They found nothing. Nobody has found anything.
I know.
You know why?
Are you going to talk
and by the way, this is the most transparent thing ever done with the White House.
He's not deviating either. He's not all of a sudden sitting in a different position. He's not all of a sudden wiping sweat from his face. He's not all of a sudden giving himself a shoulder massage. He's not crossing his arms in front of him to be defensive against the interviewer or the interviewer's question. His body language has not changed now since he's been answering Russia questions.
I think I gave him 1,400,000 documents, and I told my lawyers, don't even read them. There's no Russia mention or anything like that. They have nothing. I don't like to see that kind of fighting. It's terrible.
Are you going to mention?
Bad for both sides.
Right here is very interesting. You start to see his eyebrows starting to come together, indicating that he is very, very sincere right now. He really does believe this. However, he does show his bottom teeth, indicating that he is angry about this. You can understand why he would be angry about this, because it's a huge distraction and a huge waste of taxpayer dollars. So, was Trump lying at all about Russia collusion in the 2016 presidential election? Absolutely not. There is zero indication. The words that are coming out of his mouth are in line with his body language, which are in line with his facial expressions, which are in line with his tonality. All of that is congruent. Also, no real indication of any body language signs which would indicate he was lying about Russia collusion. So far in this Body Language of a Liar series, we've looked at a few cases, and in all those cases, it was proven that the people were lying. This is a good example for you to understand what it looks like when a person is not lying. Lastly, keep in mind, we only looked at Trump body language involving Russia collusion in the 2016 election. We did not analyze Trump's body language involving anything else that he possibly could be lying about. But if there's anything else you want me to look into involving Trump or any future Body Language of a Liar ideas, let me know. Put that in the comments below. Now, if you get triggered by what Donald Trump calls the fake news, turn this video off right now and go watch one of my other videos. Remember to subscribe so new videos just like this come right to you, and I'll see you at the top.
And as Nancy Pelosi said, have we crossed into cover-up here? What
is Donald Trump trying to hide.
This is yet another example from the president of denying things that in reality are in fact true.
Sources tell CNN financial links could offer a more concrete path to any potential prosecution.
It is a little suspicious, Ken, that you have a man who doesn't stop for a second. If he doesn't like something that you say right now, there's a good chance he'll take a shot at you, but never Vladimir Putin. Never a crossword for Vladimir Putin.
Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. I think it's very bad for mankind. It's very bad for this world.
We urge Russia to cease its destabilizing activities in Ukraine and elsewhere.
Donald Trump is just terrified of Vladimir Putin.
The U.S. sanctions against Russia passed earlier this week are expected to cause significant damage to the Russian economy. They target Russia's defense, intelligence, mining, shipping, railway, energy industries. They even restrict Russian banks.
They actually may be going further in the sanctions against the Russian government.
We've seen a much harder line from, particularly from the State Department. They've targeted Russians, putting limits on the buying of Russian debt.
Right now, we're not getting along with Russia at all. We may be at an all-time low in terms of relationship with Russia. This is built for a long period of time.